right, and joining us live in studio to discuss is New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us on American Agenda. You and I exchanged a little glance while we were hearing Sarah's report. It's very interesting to me on several levels, but first, that all of a sudden, this mayor and his wife, who generally don't really believe in expanding the NYPD or really supporting them very much, suddenly they need them for a personal trip.
Yeah, and that's the hypocrisy. I mean, whether it's him or whether it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who takes a gas-guzzling vehicle, SUV, to go 2 blocks to go vote with a cop in a car full of cops, by the way, or it's this. We see the hypocrisy of the left. It's like it's good for them, but not for the public. And in this case, he was the leader in the defund the police movement in the New York State legislature. And he is also the one that's standing in the way of us hiring thousands of more cops. We are still down about 8,000 cops than we were on September 11, 2001. And here he wants to take limited resources that we have and send them into a level 4 security risk country, according to the Department of State, putting those cops in danger. And so it is ludicrous. I'm glad it was exposed, and I'm glad he was shown to be the phony that he is.
Congresswoman, correct me if I'm wrong. He was going to add more cops, but then the DSA got involved and raised a big stink about it, and then he didn't go through with it all. So my real question would be, who's actually running things? Is it really Zohran Mamdani or whoever is pulling the strings upstairs above him, do you think?
Well, look, I think the only reason we see a small increase in the number of cops is because we have Jessica Tisch there. And thankfully, he's mostly deferring to her when it comes to some of these NYPD issues. But I'm sure she would love to hire thousands of more cops.
Right.
But they have limited resources because of what the mayor and the city council are doing. And policing is just not one of their priorities. We saw the previous city council with Bill de Blasio cut the budget by $1 billion. They're driving cops out of our city and our state with their reckless policies that have tied their hands and made it more difficult for them to do their jobs. And then they're not rehiring them. So it may not be defunding the police at this current moment, but it's driving them out
in a way,
and not replacing them. So
kind
what really is the difference,
so
right?
Limiting the force overall, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to get to this. President Trump is blasting Mayor Mamdani's Pied-A-Terre tax. Now, that's a surcharge that President Trump himself could have to pay. The president writing on Truth Social, this dangerous political experiment in New York will destroy what was once a great city and state. I'm looking to see if the federal government has any legal right to avert this disaster before it's too late. Now, it was interesting, one of the real estate companies here in New York City, they explained it, and they said basically anyone who has a second home in New York City could be paying anywhere from 4% to 6.5%, starting at a $1 million valuation. And they said ultimately that you would be paying that tax not based on what you paid for that residence, but what the market value is. So people could be looking to spend a minimum of $40,000 more. And I think we all know a $1.1 million home here in New York City, which is the average price, doesn't get you very much.
Well, and not only that, I don't think it's the actual market value. It would be the assessed value by the city of New York, which oftentimes seems to be higher than what the real market value is. And that is how they squeeze the taxpayers for more money. Look, this is something that this is just the very beginning of what he's trying to do. This is a guy literally sat in a podcast saying that he does not believe in private property, that we should abolish private property ownership. And so he is a true communist when it comes to property. We already see what he's doing to small business owners, to landlords, small property owners, squeezing them with violations, and violations many are meritless. To try to take more money and to really drive them out at the end of the day. So you may drive out the wealthier New Yorkers with this policy, but this is just the beginning, and you're going to drive out the middle class.
It's really about
well.
control. He has said many times there is no problem government can't fix.
That's
so
right.
his solution is to interject government into everything. We also want to get to this. President Trump going to be out on Long Island on Friday. Your thoughts on that? That should be fun, right?
We're very excited to have President Trump back in New York, and he's going to make that stark contrast between Republicans' policies on public safety. Bruce Blakeman, who will be out there with us on Friday, is running for governor. He runs the safest county in the state of New York. We can bring those types of smart policies to the state level if we fire Kathy Hochul. And I think that's the contrast that President Trump is going to be highlighting. And I think, look, we delivered middle-class tax cuts for senior citizens, for tipped workers, for working Americans. and those middle-class families. And I think that we have to remind people how things were just a couple of years ago with Joe Biden, where they were getting squeezed for every dollar. And on top of that, we had a very unsafe city and country because we have illegal immigrants that were running rampant
10 to 15
and
million
wreaking
of them
havoc.
not too long
Right?
ago.
Yeah.
Congresswoman, pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.